Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dance Teachers hosted conversation with Regional Dance America. My name is Rianne Rodriguez, and I'm the editorial director here at Dance Teacher slash Dance Teacher Plus. Our conversation today will be recorded, and we'll be putting it up on our YouTube channel where you can watch it on demand at any time. There will also be an opportunity for you to ask questions in the last 10 to 15 minutes of this conversation. Regional Dance America, RDA, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides performance and educational opportunities for pre-professional dance companies throughout all American communities, rural and urban, small town and suburb. Through regional festivals, in-house adjudication, master classes, non-competitive and high-caliber performances, networking opportunities, and virtual workshops, RDA provides quality education and support to member companies throughout the entire year, along with scholarship opportunities for thousands of dancers annually. In today's discussion, we'll be talking with some esteemed guests from RDA about why Regional Dance America is dance's best kept secret. So if this is your first time hearing about RDA, we welcome you into this conversation wholeheartedly because you'll hear from several dance leaders about why RDA is such a highly regarded and well-respected institution that top dance schools across the country are turning to now. And we're so excited for you to find out why. Joining us are Erica Davis, the CEO of Regional Dance America, who's also an advisory board member of our sister publication, Point Magazine, along with Christopher Estes Brown, RDA's programs director, Silas Farley, former New York City ballet dancer, Beth Everett, associate director of programs and productions at Houston Ballet Academy, Autumn Ekman, master faculty member with American Dance Festival and RDA, and last but not least, Amy Martin Vaughn, the artistic director of Appalachian Ballet Company and the director of the Van Meter School of Dance. She's also RDA/Southeast's parliamentarian and longtime leader on RDA's national and regional boards. A big welcome to you all. We're so thrilled to have you with us today. Let's get started. For a dance school or company that's just beginning to explore RDA for the first time, how do you usually describe the organization in one or two sentences? And I'd like to ask each one of you this question. So let's start with you, Erica, and I'll move around.
Sure. Thanks so much, Ryan. We're really so thrilled to be here today with everyone. So typically, I might speak a little bit more. I'll call it factually, like here are the facts about RDA, and then everyone else can add in so much experience with this organization. But just to start with a really factual statement here, we are a nationwide 501c3 nonprofit, and we have 5 regional organizations that represent different parts of the country that are all underneath the RDA umbrella. So we have 5 regions with us. And we bring together pre-professional dance companies, troupes, guilds, ensembles, performance groups to train, perform, and grow through our educational and performance opportunities. That's how I would describe RDA from a little bit of a, I'll call it factual standpoint.
Thank you, Erica. Amy.
The best way I think to describe would be an annual festival held obviously each year, and the educational opportunities for our dancers to learn from master teachers taking classes, and then to have a performance opportunity in front of their peers and in front of the faculty that has been chosen for that year. And it's just a time to come together and lift each other up and support each other through Regional Dance America, and lifelong friendships develop from there. And we all know the dance world is very small. So when we're together, it just keeps reaching out and reaching out.
Yep, wonderful. Um, let's go with Beth, you first, and then Christopher.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Amy said. I think the first thing I would say is, oh, I did RDA when I was young. But I think it is a way to provide access, especially to maybe smaller pre-professional companies and students. Just to see what else is out there. It's a great way to kind of, it's like a barometer maybe of how you're doing as a dancer. And yeah, you get to meet people that maybe you'll see at summer programs and you just kind of create, it's through the festivals and through the master classes. Not only do you learn, but you kind of start weaving your blanket of friends through the dance community.
Amazing. Christopher?
So like Beth, I also did RDA as a student and then as a choreographer and as an adjudicator, and now I work for the organization. I normally talk about the community that we build and how it really starts as like a sort of an extension of your home dance studio into this regional community and networking that both the students and the directors get, and then onto the national stage when we do national festivals.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll hand it over to you, Silas, and then Autumn.
My child self who went to RDA as a dancer in the Southeast region would just say RDA is so much fun. It's like getting to go on tour with a ballet company when you're 13, and it's so much fun. And then I think my more grown-up dance educator answer would be that it is an engine for the development of dancers, teachers, directors, and choreographers at the pre-professional dance level. And but that the main thing is that I just remember it being like an adventure going as a student.
Mm-hmm. Autumn?
Like my colleagues before, I also grew up in RDA companies and also served as a choreographer. So, from this point in my life, RDA creates a space where you can come full circle, which I think is really wonderful. But it also, RDA creates a space where artistry and technical growth have like equal value and where feedback can become a catalyst for deeper development for students.
Mm-hmm. I want you to expand on that thought a little bit, Autumn. In your experience, what sets RDA apart from other dance organizations that you might have been a part of?
Yes. I appreciate its emphasis of education over competition. I think it's really valuable. The adjudication process is rooted in mentorship.
Mhm.
And students receive thoughtful feedback, rigorous, there's rigorous training at the festivals by nationally recognized artists and educators. But I think that feedback becomes part of like an ongoing dialogue for the craft and development and their voice and their artistic voices. Yeah.
Awesome. And Silas, I loved what you said about RDA connecting, your younger and older self. And I'm sure you too have been a part of, various dance organizations. What, in your experience, makes RDA stand out in your dance experience?
Building on what Autumn said, it's really the layers of feedback because you can go as a dancer and you can see where you stack up with other dancers your age, and you can be inspired by them, and you can, look to them and learn from them and make those friendships. And the same is true for a director to be able to go to a convening where you can compare notes to people who are uniquely pursuing that same kind of work, but in a different context. And then I think
Right.
it's one of the really unique places where a pre-professional choreographer can have their work assessed and also have their work presented at a professional level. And I remember dancing in my friend David Morse's emerging choreography piece. And all these years later, he's running Cincinnati Ballet's school. So there we were, like part of each other's professional development and getting to be part of that kind of high level performance with pre-professional choreographers, which is magical.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Thank you all. I'm going to shift the perspective slightly onto um, dance schools and companies. I guess, Amy, because you also are, heading a big dance school, can you speak a little bit about what kind of dance schools or companies you see thriving within RDA?
Well, I think for our company and our school, the fact that I'm training them in the school and then they feed into the company, they move the quality and their education gets better because they're performing a lot. And then you add RDA onto it, and they have that goal each year for adjudication and performing, and they keep stepping up and becoming better. So I think for anyone really interested in being a part of Regional Dance America, to me, it just year by year has lifted us up. And then as we've gotten more scholarships or these great performing opportunities where maybe we've opened the gala or we've done something special, then we just want to keep getting better. You don't want to go back to RDA and say, oh, that was worse than last year. No, we always want to be better. And I feel like for a school that's really yearning to grow, um, and not grow so much in numbers of students. I'm talking about growing artistically and um, growing technically through the education of RDA. So, highly recommend it from a standpoint of how it can lift your school up. And my school is successful because my company is successful. My company is successful because I have a good school. So they just so go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Erica, I see you sort of nodding very enthusiastically. Is there something you'd like to add to that as well?
Sure. I mean, Amy is spot on, I think, with everything that she's saying here, and from that perspective of, being a director of a member company. And you'll probably hear that term member company thrown around a lot in today's webinar. So I just wanted to clarify that um, member company we use a bit loosely in terms of what that company looks like. So by company, we basically mean, the performing ensemble. And sometimes that performing ensemble is a separate entity than a school. Sometimes it's the same entity. So just understand that if you're listening in on the webinar, that the term member company, we basically mean each performing group that's a part of an RDA region. And these performing groups, they vary in size, so some might be smaller, they may, 8 to 10 dancers. Some might be quite large, 50 dancers, for example. And some may be in more rural areas. Others may be, in a suburb or in a major metropolitan city. Our Atlanta group, we have what, 7 companies, right in and around each other in Atlanta. So we see a really diverse segment of um, whether they're studios or whether they are just that performing ensemble, really thriving in RDA membership. Amy was 100% right. It almost provides an anchoring point for
Mm.
your season, and it's always something to look forward to. And each of our member companies has, their pre-professional training curriculum that they are training the dancers in every year, and whatever that structure is of their annual performances. And then RDA, that adjudication and festival really anchor the company's season. So if you are, a group that is really looking to, like Amy said, grow artistically, find a support system, whether you're in a major metropolitan area or you're in a very, very small area, RDA is really the tool that may be necessary, to unleash that growth for yourself. So I might just add that to all of it. Our member companies look to RDA for that artistic growth, for the performance opportunities, and really a lot of meaningful professional connections.
I know there's a lot of perhaps newcomers or on our attendees list, and I would love to know. I'm going back to you, Beth, because what you shared initially about RDA and and what it means to you as community, that community aspect of it. I want to hear a bit more about what it really feels like, emphasis on the feel, to be a part of the RDA community.
Sure. I think, I've had an interesting perspective back in 1904 when I was a student. I was able to go to 2 regional festivals in the Southeast region. And actually, one of them was hosted by Appalachian Ballet Company, which is where the company that I was with. And then I was able to do a national festival that was in Houston, Texas, which oddly enough was my first summer after that. I came to Houston Ballet and then started my life here in Houston. So, but I've also, last year, I was able to return to the Southeast Festival as a teacher. And I also adjudicated some of the auditions. So I think what was so amazing about it as a student is I knew I wanted to be a dancer, and when I was at the festival and around other dancers that, you know, I admired or had seen year to year, and I got to do pas de deux for the first time at a festival. I maybe did a little solo in a piece here and there. Like it felt like a stair step to what I wanted to be as, my career. I wanted to be a dancer. So it felt like the springboard to what it could be. And then coming back as a teacher, um, just one to see how much it had grown and just all the different and varied opportunities that the festival and RDA provides now, across the board, from having college programs there or whatever it is, just how much it had grown and how rich the experience was for all the dancers was amazing. And I saw directors that were still a part of it all these years later, and I remembered them, and I remembered, some of the different, yeah, it just felt like coming home. It felt like family, and I was really, honestly, I was extremely honored to teach in the festival, and yeah, it was a great weekend because it just felt like a homecoming.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And also love the connection between you and Amy that kind of goes way back. Amy, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Um, well, coming back to that family feeling, we think about the great Bobby Barnett from Atlanta Ballet and how many years he's been involved. And he's now 100 years old and he still comes to our festivals. And I will never forget um, doing one of my ballets called With Chaplin. And I had just had my second child, who's now 29 years old. And I looked at Mr. Barnett, he was our adjudicator, and I said, uh, I have this fall that I do as I played Charlie Chaplin. I said, but I just had a C-section 6 weeks ago, so I don't think I'm going to do that today. And then to turn around and years later, we come to a festival and there's Bobby Barnett teaching pas de deux class to my two daughters, and
Wow.
she's now 16. And then she goes off to Houston Ballet to dance. And then years later, here I'm the president, and now my daughter is the president of the Southeast region. And there's Bobby Barnett taking pictures with the three of us. So it's just like been this lifelong, and that's just one example of the lifelong friendships. And oh my goodness, Silas Farley. I remember you at North Carolina Dance Theater, and you had the skinniest little legs, and you were so young, and you were so beautiful. And I remember us saying, he's going to go far. And to think, look at you now. So just really, like Beth said, wonderful homecoming time every year, and looking forward to that each year, and looking forward to showing somebody like a Bobby Barnett, look what I've done with my company. Look where we are now. Look how we keep growing and maturing and being more sophisticated in our choreographic choices. Um, and coming from Maryville, Tennessee, we're outside of Knoxville. I would consider us a rural area, and to be able to come together with the professionals around the states and different teachers, and for our children, our dancers, to realize they're not just a little small entity in Maryville, Tennessee. There's a big wide world of dance out there, has really been wonderful for us.
Yeah, these are such fascinating stories. Thank you all. I want to shift focus a little bit now to you, Christopher. Everybody's really spoken about their student experience and how wonderful it has been. Can you speak a little bit about how RDA's mission shows up in the student experience, particularly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what's so interesting about what RDA does is so at these festivals, we have performances with all of the companies. We bring them together across several nights and they perform. And the performances are not just educational in the sense that we, teach them dance technique in the day with classes and we mentor them in the performances, but they're also very professional quality performances. So you get an education as a student in how to perform like in a professional setting with an audience that is extremely knowledgeable. And then you also get aspects of like if you're a choreographer, which we have emerging choreographers, which are like student choreographers, they get to work with professional lighting designers and they get mentored by the adjudicators on what it would mean to like present a professional looking work. So they get, um, as ex from a student perspective, they get an opportunity to sort of be slightly above where they normally would be performing, and that will help to like push them to continue to like strive to do more things. And then we build all these connections at these festivals that then you take as a student, you take into the rest of the dance world. You go to a summer dance workshop or to an audition, you will run into people that you've met in classes at festivals, and then you have this community around you, and it it takes a dance world that can be kind of competitive and it makes it friendlier and warmer and more community based. And it really focuses the dancer on them improving themselves and seeing what they can do as a dancer, knowing that they're being surrounded by all this support. It kind of expands the amount of support that a dancer would get outside of just their studio into this like greater organization that the studios also participate in, the companies also participate in.
Mhm, mhm. I haven't heard from you in a little while, Autumn, so I'm going to ask my next question to you. Why do you think RDA has resonated so deeply with dance schools and students?
Sure. Well, I think it can be a defining moment and like a core memory in their training. I know for me it certainly was. Um, and I think also it's accessible. It's very accessible. It gives students a professional context without stripping away the educational components. And I think schools value it because they're receiving performance feedback and collaboration that's aligned with curricular goals, which I think is really important. I mean, it fosters community. I think we keep hearing that as a recurring theme over and over again.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and I think it's also just this wonderful thing, like, you're in your community, but you're also connecting to a national network. Yeah.
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 I think it's been so wonderful to learn so much about, how each of you have had your own individual experiences with RDA and how that's also come together. And, I think it's wonderful. And we do say that this is really the dance world's best kept secret. So I want to hear from each of you, and perhaps we can start with you, Autumn. Why do you think an organization like RDA matters right now in the dance world? If you can just maybe summarize that in about one or two sentences.
Wow. Uh, because I think, it's an organization that's so generous. And I think, we it's a place where that generosity thrives. And it's a place you can return and like we said before, in many aspects, in many spheres from a dancer. And as you grow and stay in this form, it gives you a place to come back and visit as a choreographer, as an educator, as a teacher, a studio owner. So there's space for growth for also not just the students, but also the dance educators.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I see you next on my screen, just below Autumn, so I'll go with you, Beth.
Yeah, I think it's important because, a place like Houston Ballet Academy has our own students, from our own school, but we also have students from all over the world, and all over the country. And I think that, companies, professional companies across the country also depend on excellent educators in Maryville, Tennessee to and you know what I mean? And I think it's important to have this like web of excellence across the country that helps the art form move along. And I know, I mean, I'm sure Amy can speak of this more maybe than me, but I remember even way back then, Amy might need costumes for something and she could reach out to her RDA partners and get or sharing choreographers or it just creates it just makes everyone better and the betterment at the pre-professional level creates the betterment of the professional level and of the art form in general, I think. So
Mhm. I'd love to hear from you, Silas, as well, and then on to you, Amy, and then Christopher.
Two of the big things that stand out for me are the exposure to the master teachers, for sure. And then also just this simple but profound human connection, like just being there in the space with people from other parts of the country who've devoted themselves to the same things and getting to have that experience together. There's no price on that. It's so super special.
Mhm. Amy?
Um, well, back to your question of saying how does this relate in the world today? I think, we live in such a scary world. And to me, RDA is sort of a safe place. It's a place I know I can take my dancers for one long weekend a year. And I know that the community around them, the RDA faculty, the other member companies, the dancers themselves, we take care of each other. And I think sort of the taking care of each other in this big, scary world is wonderful. And we plan ahead. We know where we're going to go. We know what hotel we're going to stay in. We know what convention center we're going to be in. So as a director, I feel like I'm taking good care of my dancers, that I'm keeping them safe. Um, and just to tag on a little bit of what Beth said about the networking and borrowing costumes and like, I wouldn't have my wonderful Harlequin floor if I hadn't met them at festival. And now I have a personal connection with Jennifer at Harlequin, and she's coming to do new sprung floors in my studio this summer. And then I can get male dancers for Nutcracker because in Maryville, Tennessee, we don't have male dancers. They're just few and far between. So to go and find a guest artist for our Nutcracker or our Cinderella or whatever we're doing, and borrowing costumes and finding choreographers. I mean, that again, just that web of working together in a safe atmosphere is
Mhm.
wonderful.
Thank you. Christopher?
Yeah, sort of to just continue with what Amy is saying. The way the RDA is structured is it's a democracy. It's very democratized. It's one of the few things that you can do where you will take your dancers out for a performing opportunity, and you, as the director of that company, get a say. All of the directors sit on the boards of the festival. They help to plan and decide the structure of the festival, the teachers that are brought in, the adjudicators that are present. And so I think that, like Amy is saying, it feels like a safe place. And we've talked about community, but part of that is that as a company director, as a studio owner, or whatever, combination of those things that you are, as a participant, you get a say in how it is run. The whole organization, the festivals themselves, it it creates a situation where, um, yeah, it just feels very democratized. So.
Thank you. Erica, anything to add?
The only other thing I'll really add, because these are such beautiful points that everyone is making here, and from so many different perspectives too on the RDA experience, which I really appreciate everyone sharing. I think that in this kind of era right now where everything is at your fingertips, a lot of our young folks are on social media a lot, and they can see that dancer that does the 8 pirouettes. It gets very competitive, and comparison kind of really comes into the equation quite quickly, right? And I think that with RDA, that, comparison element is truly for the betterment of an entire organization, for the uplifting of an entire company, for refining the technique or refining the performance elements of a particular, group of young folks that really does focus their attention on, helping one another become better, be better human beings, better dancers and everything, and helps directors as well. And, you know, I think that when you show up at festivals, for example, or you show up at a summer program of ours, you're not competing with the person who's next to you. You're really showing up as a representation of where you're from and your training and what that looks like in your particular area. And you go to a national festival, and all of a sudden you're next to someone who is from a completely different area than you, and you're learning from them. And it really becomes this tool for really, I'll call it healthy comparison, if that makes sense, and growth, which I think is so important for young folks nowadays, and for the directors too. Again, that networking that Amy is sharing and talking about, I think is just so incredible and very unique to RDA. Um, and I'll say too, we've mentioned ideas like this. I too grew up in RDA, representing another region than everyone here. And I remember one specific audition that I was at, and there was a young dancer and her grandmother, and I was overhearing their conversation. I kept hearing the word festival. I'm like, this is kind of unique in the dance world, that word festival, right? So I decided to butt into the conversation and ask, are you by any chance talking about RDA? And she said, oh yes, how do you know RDA? And I'm like, well, I dance in the Northeast region, and she was dancing in the Mid-States region at that time. And she and I walked into this audition almost as if we had a friend. Like we didn't know each other at all, but we had that connection of RDA. And instead of, again, essentially a competition where you're competing with everyone, when you walk into an audition, typically we walked into an audition with a friend. And I think that that is really profound, for an organization to have that much of an impact on, all of the young people that are within it, that they can actually feel like they have a supportive network, that they might be walking into an audition with, or maybe they're taking a class together at festival. And I think that that's quite profound in the dance world.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Erica. Actually, while I have you talking about how, these beautiful, wonderful stories, and I also like what Amy shared about, the world we live in today and how RDA is a safe space. I want to ask you, Erica, what excites you most about where RDA is headed in the near future?
So many different things. I think that, oh, if I picked a couple, for example, I think something that's really exciting is our program reach. And so, for example, like this summer, we're bringing our summer programs to multiple parts of the country, right? So instead of an opportunity only being in one area, we're trying to penetrate more areas and bring these opportunities to different places and really heighten that accessibility factor of being able to engage with RDA and see what we're all about. Bring these training opportunities, and performance opportunities in a setting that just feels, I think, as you're probably hearing here, very, very special, very special. So I would say probably first and foremost, just the reach of our programs is something I'm looking forward to in the future. And um, based right off of that too, I'll also say we have our next national festival event that we're planning for 2029. And those national festival events, like Beth mentioned earlier, the regional festivals are incredible and just such unique opportunities. And then you go to those national festivals, and it really blows your mind as a student just how large this organization is and how many people, give up just as much time in the studio doing their tondus, as you do. And it's just very so meaningful and so uplifting as a young dancer. So I also look forward to the fact that that is coming up next in just a couple of years.
Amazing. Thank you. And Christopher, you talked a little bit about the, student experience. Can you talk a bit more about the scholarship and recruitment program and how you see that progressing in the near future?
Yeah, so our scholarship and recruitment program has just grown exponentially since COVID, really. And this last year we had 83 different organizations participate in scholarship and recruitment. Some of that is on site at the festival. We also have a really expansive online scholarship and recruitment where they can apply to multiple summer programs, or if they're, interested in university scholarships or professional track programs, they can audition for all of that uh, through our online program. What it does is it really gives access to people. It gives access to the dance student from, you know, any area to any company that is participating. So I'm really excited about in the future figuring out more ways to include, especially as like college recruitment becomes such a big deal in the dance world, or universities, finding more ways to be able to like prioritize scholarships for dancers that are in rural areas that maybe have a harder time going to in-person auditions. Uh, Dancers currently have the ability to, be in Arkansas and audition for summer workshops that are happening in the Northeast, where they maybe don't have the ability to drive every weekend 8 hours to get to an audition. Being somebody who grew up in the Midwest, I can recognize that as like a real problem. I mean, now more auditions come through the city I grew up in, but when I was a kid, I'd have to go to Chicago to audition for Boston Ballet. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's wonderful. Wow, time is flying and this has been incredible. I do have more questions, but I do want to open it up. But I do have one question to ask, and I'll ask you, Erica. Um, but I also at the same time want to open up this session for our attendees to ask questions. We do have a little bit of time from this point, so we'll try our best to get to as many questions as we can. If you have a question, please enter it into the Q&A section, and we will visit those momentarily. But before that, I'm coming back to you, Erica. I want to know, because a lot of our attendees here, maybe for some of them, they're just beginning to explore RDA. Can you talk a little bit about what is a good next step?
Sure. I would say, so I have three different ideas here for anyone who's joining this webinar today to get to know RDA. My first and always my first recommendation is reach out to us and have a conversation, because I think that, like you see here on this call, there we have so many perspectives to share. And if you have questions about a certain element of RDA, or you just need someone to walk you through, like, what would this look like for my performing ensemble for a year? The first thing that I'd recommend is reach out and have a conversation with us. You can reach out through our website. You can send an email to just info@regionaldanceamerica.org, or you can always call, so just visit the website, look around, see what questions you might have. And I really, really recommend that first thing to do would be have a conversation. We have regional membership chairpersons in each of our regions that would be so happy to have that initial discovery call, with you. Or email it too. Email exchange works perfectly as well. That would be my first recommendation. Second thing that I think any one of us would probably recommend, come experience a festival of hours. Come experience a summer program. Come experience RDA in action. And that can look different for every single group. If it's, for example, if a director could stop by for a single day of a festival, fantastic. A couple of hours, fantastic, right? Please spend the whole weekend with us. We'd love to get to know you more. But I think that seeing it in action is really, it's key to understanding how all the elements of RDA come together. And I hope at least you'll really feel that magic that all of us are talking about here when you really do experience us in action. The last thing I would recommend too is, maybe a festival doesn't work, maybe time frame just, doesn't work for your schedule, etc. We have summer programs that we offer, and this year we will be in 4 different locations at 4 different time frames for those summer programs. And if you have dancers who are interested, you do not need to be affiliated with RDA to attend one of our summer programs. It is like a summer intensive across the country, right, where individuals come from all over for these programs. So perhaps sending a dancer or two to one of our summer intensives so that, again, they start to see what the RDA experience is like and they get to meet dancers who are in RDA and they can talk about what that looks like. And then come back to your studio, your company with that kind of deeper understanding from that side of things too. We'd love to have you all there as directors as well. We love when directors come and visit. So those would be my key things I would say would be your next steps.
Yep. Thank you, Erica. We did have some questions come through as well. And please, anyone on this discussion, feel free to jump in with your thoughts or answers to these questions. So I'm going to take the first one. It says, I'm hoping to gain an overview of what RDA is or what level dancer. Can this be beneficial to a high school that is more beginner or intermediate?
I can take that one for sure. So I would say that all of RDA's regional member companies, they are training dancers at a pre-professional level, right? They have an established curriculum, expectations for their dancers, and each member company has its annual season, right? Where there's an emphasis on working towards a performance or working towards an RDA adjudication or a festival event, and there's like an established curriculum to get them there, right? And to reach those goals. My recommendation is going to come back to what I basically just said in the last question. Come see RDA in action. See what those classes look like at a festival. See what the performance elements look like. Learn more about, we've mentioned a little bit our emerging choreography program. Like, come see what the different elements of RDA are like because you know your students best, right? And you can make the best decision, I think, for your group as to if RDA is the right fit, right? And again, I'd also just harken back to have some dancers attend a summer program of ours, right? And see that we are one of our summer programs has a very, very creative element to it with choreography. And so, come experience that, have your dancers work in the different genres of that program, and just again, see if this feels like a great fit for what your organization is aspiring to do, right? That would be my best answer to that question.
Thank you, Erica. And please, everyone who's on this call, please keep your questions coming. I'm going to take the next one. Do you see a balance between creating regional works that are meaningful or for a regional audience versus meant to push or pull the industry standard?
Christopher, do you want to take that one with me?
Yeah, I can do my best. That's a really big question. Yeah, absolutely. I think that I would start by saying that when we're talking about, pushing forward with dance, if we're just talking about that aspect of it, I think that starts with education. There's a huge educational component to what we're doing. And then there's been a lot of talk already about how we watch people progress through that education onto the next steps. If we're talking more about like regional impact versus national impact, there's multiple levels to what we're doing with that as well. I think a lot of times when historically, not to sound older, but historically, when we talk about regional dance, we talk about like regional dance companies, meaning companies that service only a city versus more of a national conversation. I think that's maybe an antiquated way to think about regional impacts of companies, anyways. So I think that yes and yes, we are always considering what we're doing in our own region and then also progressing the art form as a whole. Usually starting with pre-professional dancers is the best way to do that, I think.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And even the element that Christopher was talking about earlier of a festival performance of ours, for example, is a really professional experience for all of these young people in RDA where well, actually, it's the young people in RDA who are performing, but also the directors and the choreographers, right? Because there's the element of our adjudicator working with the director who's working with the lighting designer to set a professional lighting plot. And maybe that individual, the adjudicator might be saying, I need a little bit more here. Could we put a little bit more there, right? In whatever element of say lighting or performance, right, is needed for this piece to bring it to the next level, right? So it's starting with this beautiful representation of that particular member company's area, maybe a choreographer who's in their area, maybe a choreographer from away from their area, right? And that piece that is presented at festival is meant to present the company, in the best light. So it's representing a beautiful portion of that community. And then there are other professionals there with different perspectives and different ideas, helping to take it from this already great level that it's at to the next level, right? And trying to push those boundaries of what's possible for that company. Then you take the whole region and you come to an REA national festival, for example, right? And now you have a region and all of its fabulous qualities next to another region, all of its fabulous qualities, right? And you're now getting to see that, comparison to different parts of the country. Maybe you're meeting choreographers and directors from different areas that might help, again, expand what your own company wants to do for its next season, right? So I think that there's a beautiful representation of that region, and at in the next breath, also pushing forward, that conversation in the national dance realm as well.
Mhm. Thank you. We have a little bit more time, so if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A section of the session. I do have one more actually. It says, how do you handle small communities and small enrollments?
Shall I? And then I'll hand some other questions over to everyone else. Um, when a company or an ensemble or group or troupe or guild or whatever your particular um, status is, when you look to evaluate for RDA membership in a particular region, we ask that each group have 8 dancing members. And we look for that number of 8 because we've found through time that helps to establish kind of a I'll call it large enough performing group that it tends to be able to carry season to season, right? And so with RDA, we hope that there's, a commitment of more than just a singular season. So with that, I'll call it magic number of 8 individuals that we ask to be in that company when the company does evaluate for membership, we hope that is a size that helps the company sustain itself, in the membership moving forward. One other thing I guess I'll comment too on is some of our smaller companies, when they create pieces to be presented at festival, they might not have every single dancer in the piece, right? It might be a small group of 5, it might be a quartet, it might be a trio. And it's they're making that best determination for their group based on what that training element and the readiness of the dancers to perform, right? So with smaller communities, we look for that magic number of 8 when it comes to the initial introduction to RDA, and that is kind of the I'll call it stable size moving forward. Many performance works have more or fewer than that number of dancers moving forward.
We do have some more questions coming in live. Do you offer any summer programming focused on polishing or coaching pre-professional dancers and helping them to develop their videos for college and company auditions?
I should probably take that since I manage the programs. Um, so that's actually a really good idea. We don't specifically currently have a summer workshop that does that. We are expanding what our intensives and workshops look like currently. We do have one that is focused on performing and coaching, individualized coaching for that, called the Performance Workshop, and they will get like one-on-one coaching for that. We do, though, when we do our scholarship and recruitment, our online portion of that, we do have a lot of information and guidelines on the best practices with that. I think that's a good idea for a future program to put into the works. So I'll definitely keep that in mind going forward. Always looking for something new to do.
Yeah, and then when you take these different elements, like for example, we have a coaching program for solos, and we have, like Christopher is saying, these summer programs. elements of each of those actually feed into that online audition process that we do. So we see a lot of our dancers utilize the training that they've received and the recording that they've made of, say, for example, a variation that they've learned or a solo work that they've learned, and they utilize that for a college audition, or they utilize that for, again, our scholarship and recruitment process, for example. So there are kind of elements of RDA in different areas that might help towards this.
Thank you.
I would also add our choreographic program that RDA does each summer. I've been privileged to attend 4 or 5 times over the years. And that program sets up young dancers to have to um, learn choreography each day in a 2-week period and perform it that night. So if you have a student, and when I have a student that's really wanting to go the professional route in dance, but perhaps they're not quick to picking up combinations, or I need them to feel what it feels like to dance all day and perform at night, the way a professional company does, then I encourage them to go to our choreographic intensive because it's really like being a professional dancer. Dance all day, learn choreography, perform that night, and you have to be quick about it. So that's a wonderful training ground if you have students who are reaching toward that professional field.
Mhm. Okay, some more questions. I'm going to try and get to all of these or as much as we can. What styles of dance are acceptable for the membership?
I see a lot of different styles of dance. I mean, at our festivals, we train the dancers in a wide variety of genres. I would say that for companies who are coming into a region, we tend to see training in ballet, training in modern, training in jazz, point, contemporary, right? So a lot of different avenues for pre-professional training. What we ask typically when a company is evaluating for membership is to present their primary training style, right? Their primary technique. When they attend a festival, and I'm sure like everyone here could answer this. I mean, such a wide genre of dance classes that they're experiencing, as well as workshops, and additional dance complementary style workshops.
Thank you. Our next question is, what is the difference between RDA and the Ballet Alliance?
I can definitely keep going on all of these questions. The Ballet Alliance is an organization that is separate from RDA and pursuing its own ambitions in the pre-professional dance realm. Some of the members of the Ballet Alliance were formerly affiliated with RDA, and some not, and we exist in harmony together.
Thank you. Um, Perhaps one for you again, Christopher. What are the available scholarship opportunities and how are they awarded?
Well, there's basically two different tracks for that. There is our um, in-person festival recruitment, and there's also an online version of it. And it varies. The available scholarship opportunities that we present dancers with come from those organizations. So, Houston Ballet will offer a full scholarship to their summer intensive, and some places will offer that in addition to year-round training at pre-professional things. It just sort of depends from organization to organization. The like I think I said this earlier, but there are over 80 participating organizations that basically range from university settings to uh, really well-known summer programs across the nation. We do ask that everybody offers a scholarship who participates in it. So I think it varies from organization to organization. There are definitely full scholarships out there to really big programs, though.
Thank you. Just one question, actually, in our last conversation, we talked about nonprofits specifically. Erica, do you need to be a nonprofit to join RDA?
Yes. So when each of our, if you think of the different kind of levels of RDA, the national organization is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. All of our regional organizations are 501(c)(3) nonprofits. All of their member companies are 501(c)(3) nonprofits. Like I sort of mentioned earlier, the way that that works with every single member company is kind of different. right? So it might be that the nonprofit is a performing ensemble, right? And that entity is the entity that joins RDA, or I should say joins an RDA region. They might have an affiliated school. Maybe that school is an LLC or it's a sole proprietorship or it's some other type, of business, but it's actually just the performing company that is the nonprofit that is joining the RDA membership. So sometimes it's the same entity as the school, sometimes it's not. But yes, there is that nonprofit status that does need to be achieved in order to join RDA. Um, I go back to what I said earlier, have a conversation with us because we have so many different structures within our membership of what all of these companies look like. And we probably can connect you with someone who has a similar experience or a similar geography maybe as you and could have a conversation with you about, how it works for them and what they see in their season.
Amazing. We're almost at time, but I do want to ask one more question because I was personally intrigued. Can you share a little bit more about the emerging choreography program as well? That sounds very interesting.
Christopher, would you like to start?
I mean, I could start. So, I mean, I will just say this, just right off the jump, is I was an emerging choreographer way back in the '90s, and I have kept choreographing since then. That's actually one of the major things that I do in the dance world is choreograph. So, it what it does is it provides an access point for people to try to choreograph stuff for basically maybe the first time or close to the first time. It will give them access to both like mentoring, it's through each company, but it has been one of the things that we have seen develop choreographers like nationally. Like I know a lot of people that have been emerging choreographers that have gone on to choreograph professionally. It is a program that sort of exists a little bit different in each region, but the gist of it is that the company can have somebody be adjudicated as a special entry into the festival that allows them to choreograph early stage choreographer, get an opportunity to choreograph, and they get costumes and they get lights and they get to be on a stage and perform at a festival. I actually think I learned the most from that experience. So
Wow, incredible. Thank you. Erica, anything you'd like to add or?
That was spot on. That was truly spot on. And a lot of our emerging choreographers have attended our choreography summer program, that we've talked about as well. And we've seen choreographers, first time that they're attempting choreography, second time they're attempting choreography, they come and they experience the summer workshop, and now all of a sudden just leaps and bounds in terms of how much they grow and how many, risks they take and how many times they're pushing themselves out of their own box, and trying something new. And it really helps to develop very unique choreographic voices, I think, in this country for sure. And it's especially if you're an emerging choreographer as a student, you may be choreographing on fellow students, which is unto itself such an interesting opportunity. And then you might be, as you progress in your career, you might be now visiting another studio because Miss Amy sees someone at the festival that she sees something in and, is wanting to hire them at her, for her company. And so it creates, again, this network starts to expand, right? Because that first or second or third or whatever it is that, attempt that someone is putting forward as an emerging choreographer, it might be that stepping stone to the next thing. And like Christopher saying, maybe it's, like a first commission regionally, or maybe it's even a first commission nationally for those individuals. It's really very unique and like Autumn was and Beth were saying earlier, like a stepping stone, to what a next part of your career might look like.
That's a wonderful way to close, actually. We are at time, unfortunately, but if you have a question that you'd like answered, I know, Erica, you shared a lot of information about next steps, but you have a question that you think about later on, please email info@regionaldanceamerica.org. You can also visit regionaldanceamerica.org and give them a follow on Instagram at Regional Dance and Facebook at Regional Dance America. Thank you, Erica, Christopher, Silas, Beth, Autumn, and Amy. It's been so wonderful learning about your experiences and your connections. And I just want to thank you all for spending time with us today. And last but not least, thank you to our attendees, whether you join RDA now or simply want to keep this incredible organization for a to-do on your future list. We're so grateful you are part of this conversation. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.